Today we're going to be taking a look at this Timbrecod DC-80 7-inch 4K field monitor. Before we get into the specs of this field monitor, I first want to tell you that on this channel, I do tech reviews. So if you're new here, consider subscribing and hit the notification bell. That way you get notified the next time we upload a new video. This field monitor is packed with features, so we're going to go through it very quickly here. The display is an LCD TFT display with a resolution of 1920 by 1200. It has a 4K HDMI input and a 4K HDMI output, as well as an audio-video input. This monitor supports 4K UHD resolutions of 3840 by 2160p at 30 Hz, 25 Hz, and 24 Hz, and it can also take in a signal of 4096 by 2160p at 24 Hz. It supports HDMI pass-through. This monitor can be powered by either DC input or the built-in 3500 milliamp hour battery. This monitor displays YUV, RGB, and YCBCR waveforms. It also displays a vector graph. It has a volume bar, and it also has an RGB histogram as well as a brightness histogram. It can display false colors. It can display focus peaking with different colors, either red, green, or blue. It also displays exposure. It supports pixel to pixel. You can either overscan or underscan. You can flip the image. You can do an image freeze. It has a safe frame. You can also display a center mark. It supports a multitude of different aspect ratios. You can customize your shortcuts, and it can also display a grid. In the box, you're going to get an instruction manual, a warranty card, HDMI Type A to HDMI Micro Type D cable, HDMI Type A to HDMI Mini Type C cable, an adjustable hot shoe mount, a storage pouch, the LCD monitor, some accessories, a DC power supply, an articulating arm, and a hot shoe mount. Before we get into the demonstration of this field monitor, I want to quickly explain why I needed this type of field monitor. Being that I record these YouTube videos, these tech reviews for YouTube, I first thought that I can output the preview monitor onto just a regular size monitor, which worked out okay. However, the problem was that a regular size monitor is bulky. It's very hard to move around and place where you need it as you're moving the camera around. So when I move the camera around to do unboxings or this headshot here, or if I'm going to be doing some demos in a different part of my studio, I need to move the camera around, which means that the preview monitor has to move with it. So using a regular size computer monitor became a problem because they're large, and they're large to where you can preview yourself very easily, and it's very good for that. However, the mobility part of it was a problem. So that's when I became interested in a field monitor, because this field monitor, or most field monitors, will have the mounts so that you can mount these onto a tripod, a portable tripod. And that's what I needed. I needed something very portable that I can move around and place exactly where I needed anytime I needed to move my camera around, depending on what kind of shot I was trying to get. So that's why I brought in this Timbrecod DC-80. I wanted to see if it can solve that issue for me. So for an in-studio field monitor, that is what I'm going to demo today. So we're not going to get into all the specs of what this field monitor can do in this review. I'm just going to show you the way I plan to use it and some of the basic functionality of this field monitor. For our purposes, I'm just going to go ahead and set it up on a Canon 80D camera and show you how I'm going to be using this field monitor, and also show you some of the real useful features that I find that are built into this field monitor. For this demonstration, we're going to be using the Canon 80D. So right off top, we're going to go ahead and turn on the monitor so you can see what comes up as soon as you turn it on. And what you're presented with is a splash screen of the manufacturer, which is Timbrecod, and immediately goes into preview mode here. So now you're looking at what the Canon 80D is looking at in terms of the preview image. So as you can see, it is a live preview. And as far as the latency with this monitor, the latency is very low. As you can see here, as I move my hand back and forth, it's almost in real time. Now, all of these field monitors are going to have some level of latency. Some are worse than others, and I would say that, in my opinion, with this field monitor, it's very close to real time. I mean, there's very little lag here, as you can tell. Just to quickly go over what you get on the screen here, I'm just going to zoom the camera in so you can see it a little more clearly here. Alright, so what you're going to notice is the two different histograms here. You got the brightness histogram, the RGB histogram, you've got the vector graph, and the RGB waveform display here. So these are the ones that are built into the monitor. You can turn those on and off as you need to. Over here you have the volume level meter here, and that is going to depend on your camera that you're using. In our demonstration here, the Canon 80D does not pass audio through the HDMI cable, so you're not going to get these volume levels working here. However, on the camera that we're shooting on right now, which is the Sony a7R III, it does pass audio through the HDMI cable, so this volume bar here does work with a Sony camera. So that's just something to note there. If you do end up picking up one of these field monitors and you notice that your volume levels here are not working, it's more than likely because of the camera that you're using. The camera that you're using has to pass audio through the HDMI cable in order for these volume levels to work. Now that's the overall on the display on this monitor here. Up here on this corner, you can see the battery level, because right now we don't have it plugged into DC power. It's working off of the internal built-in battery. So it's showing you how much battery you have there. So now we're going to quickly go over the physical buttons that you get on this field monitor. So up on top here, you're going to notice you get some buttons here. You get these function buttons here. This is a back button so that when you're in the menu system and you need to move back, you just hit this button here and it'll bring you back to whatever main menu you were in. These function buttons are programmable. They come already set, which we're gonna show you here in a minute. This is the power button here, an LED indicator light to show you that the monitor is turned on, and these are just navigation buttons here for the menu system. Now on this side you get the HDMI connections here. So you got the HDMI in, HDMI out. This USB port is to be able to update the firmware on this monitor here. Here's the DC input, so you can plug the monitor into power. On the underside of the monitor here, you've got the audio video input here and a headphone jack here so that you can monitor the audio coming into the monitor. On this side of the monitor, you also get a 1/4-20 mounting screw hole here, so you have a couple of different mounting options. So you get a 1/4-20 here and then a 1/4-20 on the underside. Now that we've gone over all the physical buttons and connections that you get with this field monitor, let's go over some of the basic functionality that you get with the field monitor. Now, using the function buttons up here, I'm going to show you what's already programmed into these function buttons. Right now I'm going to hit the function 1 button, and what that's going to do, if you can tell here, it says false color off. So we can turn the false color on, and what this will help you with is with exposure. So right now we can see that overexposure would be in red and underexposure would be in the really bluish, almost black color. So as I change my exposure on the camera, you can see that the colors are now changing. So you can clearly see with all of this blue here, that means you're underexposed. And if I turn the false color off, you can clearly see that we are definitely underexposed. So if we turn false color back on and I start to change the exposure on the camera, you can see some red coming in. That means that we're now getting this image overexposed. So let's go ahead and turn off false color, and you can quickly see that we are definitely overexposed. So now using false color, I'm going to change my settings here until we get in the range of around yellowish, around the 60-70% range there, which is where we want to be for good exposure here. So I would say this is probably pretty good right around there. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my false color, and let's check our exposure. We're a little underexposed, so let's bring it up to perfect expose according to the Canon camera. Turn the false color back on, and you can see we are definitely exposed very well there. So that's how you can use the built-in false color of this monitor, and that's on function button 1. So now we're going to press function button 2, and what this is for focus peaking. Right now it's focus peaking turned off, so I'm going to move it up. You get different levels of focus peaking, so we're going to move it to the highest level, which is 10. And right now it's using the color red to show you the focus peaking, where the camera is focused at currently. So right now you can tell that the tank here is in focus. All of these little areas that are lit up in red are in focus. I'm going to change it now to manual focus, and I'm going to start to move the focus. So right now we're out of focus, as you can tell, and you can see that there's no red lines anywhere, indicating that none of this image is in focus. So right now we're starting to get red lines in this image here, which means that this tank here is in focus. Now I'm going to continue to move until our background starts becoming in focus, and it's a little tough to see, but we can see that the background now, our background here, is starting to become in focus because now some red is starting to show up in the background. So that's how you can use the focus peaking option. So I'm going to change it back to autofocus, and as soon as I use the Canon autofocus, you can see that a bunch of red lines show up in our object here right in front of the camera, which tells us that it is now perfectly in focus. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the focus peaking now. So now it's shut off. We're going to move over to function 3. Function 3 is a center mark. Right now it's turned off. I press it again, it turns on. It gives you this crosshair here, and it's a little tough to see there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move the brightness of the monitor down so that we can see what's on here a little easier. We'll move it down to 30%. Okay, still a little tough to see. I'm going to move the camera to a different spot, so let's see if we can see that crosshair. And there we go there. So you can clearly see there's a crosshair here. Now that's going to help you center your object if you're going to be using the field monitor to set up your composition. So now if I move this back down, I can easily center my subject here, which we'll set it right about there, and we'll lock everything in, and there you go there. That's how you can use the center mark to help you with your composition. Now the last function button will enable a screen mark. So you can set the screen mark either to 80%, 85%, 90, 93, 96, or turn it off. And that will help you make sure that you have the important part of your subject in frame and not, you know, and give you a little bit of room here if you need to punch in, or you know, it just gives you a little bit of help there. So you can just easily move through 80, 85, 90, 93, 96, or turn it off. Now that we had a little bit of time to demonstrate some of the different options that you get with this field monitor, let's go ahead and go over our final thoughts of this device. First, let's talk about the build and design of this field monitor. The monitor is encased in a metal casing, which feels like it's built very well. Devices like this are very sensitive, so you want to make sure that you try your best not to drop it on the floor. But being that it's built very well, it does seem as if you were to drop it from a short distance, that it is going to be able to take a little bit of a beating and still continue to work. It doesn't look like it will get damaged very easily, but again, these devices are very sensitive, so you got to do your best to try not to drop these on the floor. But this device in particular, being encased in a metal casing, does feel very rugged, and it feels like it's built very well. Now, as far as the design of the field monitor, I do like the layout of it. The function buttons make it very simple to access your most used options that you're going to need for the field monitor. The default settings are very helpful, but if you need other settings to be accessible in the function keys, it's very easy to program the function keys or reprogram the function keys to be able to add the functionality that you need at your fingertips. So overall, build and design, I think the manufacturer did a great job with this device. The setup and operation of this field monitor is very simple, very straightforward. In terms of the physical setup, as far as mounting it onto the articulating arm or the hot shoe mounts, it's just like any other camera equipment. It's very simple. You just got to screw it onto the 1/4 20 screw, and you're pretty much set to go. The articulating arm is very fluid, very easy to change the position of the field monitor once you do have it mounted on there. Currently we have it mounted on a Canon 80D camera on the hot shoe mount. Works very well there, but if you're going to use it, let's say on a tripod, just how we use it here in studio, it's very simple to use that way as well. So it gives you a lot of different mounting options, being that it does have the 1/4 20 mount, and it has two of them, one on the side, one at the bottom. So if you do get a different type of bracket where it makes more sense to mount it using the side 1/4 20, you have that option as well. So overall, the setup and operation in terms of the physical setup of the field monitor, very simple, straightforward. The operation of the monitor is also very simple, very straightforward. The default settings in the monitor are going to allow you to get this monitor fired up, turn it on, plug it into your camera, and you're good to go. It's ready to go. Some of the more commonly used options are already programmed into the function keys. So without even having to do anything to the monitor, you're going to be able to simply just turn the monitor on, plug it into your camera, and you're good to go. And then if you need additional options, you just go into the menus and find the options that you need and make your adjustments, and you're good to go. Now let's talk about the options that you get with this field monitor. The options really come down to your use case scenario. So in our use case scenario, we're going to be using this monitor to be able to reference what we're shooting during these tech reviews. So for our use, the way we're going to be using it is with this real small Manfrotto tripod with the articulating arm, so that we can get the monitor a little higher. And we place this right underneath the camera, right just below view on camera. That way the monitor is almost at the same level as the camera lens. So when I need to reference while we're recording to the monitor, make sure, let's say I'm showing a product on screen and I need to make sure that it's in focus, then having the field monitor real close to the lens, I'm going to be able to quickly take a glance, and it's not going to be so noticeable in camera. So that's a big advantage there. And also right now, just to give you an example, I am referencing what I'm recording on my laptop, and my laptop is considerably lower than the lens of my camera here. So when I need a reference, let's say for instance I need to show this tripod on camera, I'm looking down, and it's noticeable that I'm looking down to make sure it's in focus. So having the field monitor pretty much at the same level as the lens is going to be a big advantage there, because then I can quickly just scan over and it's not going to be so noticeable on camera. The other advantage I get using this field monitor to be able to reference what I'm doing on camera while I'm shooting is the fact that I'm going to be able to move it around to the exact optimal position that I need depending on what I'm shooting. So when I'm doing these head-on shots here, I can place the monitor either right below the lens or right next to the lens using the articulating arm. Or if I'm going to be doing an unboxing video, now I can put the camera overhead, and then I can, with the articulating arm, place the monitor at eye level for me so that it's easy, so I'm not having to like hunch over or move in an awkward position to be able to see and make sure that I'm in focus as I'm unboxing a product. Or if I'm going to be doing a demonstration, let's say, kind of similar to what we did with this film monitor, doing a demonstration back here. Again, I can use a field monitor to position it right where I need it so that I can easily be able to monitor what I'm doing on camera. Now, the other advantage that I get here is, for instance, on the Canon 80D, you do have the flip out screen, which is very helpful for being able to monitor yourself. However, the camera that we use for these YouTube videos is a Sony a7R III, and Sony cameras don't have, or actually the full frame cameras don't have a flip screen, which means that I'm not able to monitor myself off of the camera view screen. So that's where this monitor comes in very handy for situations like that. Now that's just my use case scenario. Now, if you're going to be using this field monitor to be doing videography, the information that you get on screen is very helpful as far as the histogram, being able to use the false color to make sure that your exposure is dialed in correctly, to be able to use the exposure zebra to be able to make sure, again, that your exposure is set correctly. I really love the false color because it gives you the exposure of not just one area, it gives you exposure of the entire, everything that's in frame, so that areas that may be important to you, you can make sure that those areas are exposed correctly. So there's a ton of different use case scenarios. So videography, this field monitor gives you a lot of information that can be very helpful while you're shooting video. Photography, you get some options there as well. You're going to be able to zoom in. The fact that this model is the 7-inch version, it gives you a much better picture, a much better representation of the photos that you're taking while you're shooting out in the field versus the built-in viewfinder of your camera. As you're talking, the one on your camera is a little guy like this versus a 7-inch screen. So it's very helpful if you're going to be doing photo shoots in studio or photo shoots even outdoors. This field monitor will come in handy. It has a built-in battery, so that comes in handy, being that if you don't have access to power source, you're going to be able to use this without any power source connected because of the built-in battery. So you just get a ton of options. One of the other nice things that I like about this field monitor is the fact that it has an HDMI in and an HDMI out, so pass-through. Now, one of the things about the 4K spec of this field monitor is that it will take in a 4K signal, but the monitor itself is not a 4K monitor. The resolution, I believe, is 1920 by 1200. So the resolution of the display itself is not 4K, but it can take a 4K input. Why does that matter? Well, it matters in the sense of cameras as far as like the A7R III that I'm using here. The HDMI output is in 4K. So being that the camera is going to be able to take a 4K signal, the camera is now going to be able to put out just a regular 4K signal without doing any additional processing to be able to downscale that image. The monitor itself is what's doing the downscaling. And as you were able to see in our demonstration, the latency in this monitor is very, very minimal. So the latency is very good in this monitor. So you get a lot of options there. But The HDMI pass-through, it takes in a 4K signal, but it also passes through that 4K signal. So if you do have a true 4K display that you want to daisy chain into this monitor, you can do that and still get the full resolution that's going through the signal. So the monitor itself on the display is going to downscale to be compatible with its resolution of 1920 by 1200. But if you use a pass-through, it is going to pass through the full 4K signal. So you're not going to get any downscaling there. So overall, the options that you get with this monitor, as you can see, there's just a ton of different ways you can use it. And again, whether you're going to be doing in-studio work, as far as what we're doing here, or you're going to be doing in-studio photography, in-studio videography, or even out in the field, being that it does have the built-in battery, you're going to be able to use this monitor in a ton of different scenarios. Now let's talk about who this field monitor is best suited for. In our demonstration, we kind of went through some of the common options that you get with this field monitor. And as you can see, this monitor can adapt to different situations. So it really comes down to you. What is it that you're looking for in a field monitor? This field monitor in particular has a lot of options. It can adapt for videography, photography, indoor or outdoor. So it really comes down to which features are most important to you. This field monitor in particular has some very key features that I think are very helpful both in videography and photography. In our use case scenario here, it's perfect because it's a 7-inch monitor, which means that it's large enough to where I can easily see what's going on camera, but small enough to where it's very portable and I can move it around in studio and position it exactly where I need it, especially having an articulating arm, and I can, that allows me to angle the monitor and get the perfect position out of it while I'm moving it around in studio. I use it for the head-on shots just as this. I'll use it for unboxing videos where I place the camera in an overhead position. I use it for demos back here, and it's able to adapt to any situation. And being that it has a built-in battery, I don't have a ton of different cables coming out of this field monitor. It literally is just the HDMI cable. That's it. And it comes with the HDMI cables both that are compatible for Canon cameras and Sony cameras, so it's good to go right out of the box. So who is this for? Again, it really boils down to what is it that you're looking for out of a field monitor. This one gives you a ton of options. It's a great option in my opinion for in-studio work and field work as well. So that brings us to the $1 million question. Is this monitor worth your hard-earned money? As of the recording of this review video, this monitor sells for $144.99, and I think that is the key point right there. There's field monitors out there in a ton of different price ranges. This one's priced at a budget level, but it gives you options of the more expensive monitors that are out there. Now, the more pricey ones give you options, and it's laid out in a way that may be more attractive to you, but at the $144 range, this is a great choice to go with because it does have some pro features built into it that are very helpful for videography or photography work. So I really think that at $144.99, you won't be disappointed if you were to pick up one of these devices. This is going to complete my review of the Timbrecod DC-80 7-inch 4K field monitor. If you found some value in this video, I would appreciate it if you were to hit the thumbs up button. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you get notified the next time we upload a new video. And on that note, I will see you on the next review.